First on BBC One.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is episode 5 now of the History CV of Britain. I've got a great show lined up for you today, a very special guest. First, thank you, Chris Newbury, last week for commenting on the show and recommending the Aura Linda book. Now, this has been recommended to me before. Looks very, very interesting, so I have purchased it. Should be arriving in the post soon. I know my regular guest, John Hart, has also bought a copy, so I reckon we'll probably do a show on that in the very near future. Okay, right, so the Pyramid book is now finished. Alan Wilson's posthumous release. Fantastic book. Can't recommend it enough. But I'll be doing a show on that this week with Hugh Evans and Adam Griffith of Britain's Hidden History. So that should be a great show. It's a fantastic book. If you haven't read it yet, get yourselves over to Kimroglyphics and get yourself a copy. I've now moved on to this book, which I've never read before, but I'm reliably informed it's essential reading for people interested in this amazing British history of ours. So I'll be giving you regular updates on this book. I've about 10-20 pages in now, and it's already very, very interesting. Okay, so next on the agenda, I wanted to show you a website. So we're going to test out my screen sharing skills here. So bear with me, because I've made 1 or 2 errors in the past, but we'll see what happens. So hopefully now you can see this is the Golden Age Project website, which I believe was created by Edmund Marriage. And I've mentioned Edmund Marriage a few times in connection with early Christianity in Britain, the historical character Jesus. And this website is full of absolutely outstanding information. So if you haven't been on here yet, please do check it out, the Golden Age Project. Now, there's a book here called The Path of Light by Christian and Barbara Joy O'Brien. This was written some time ago, I think, but it's essential reading for early Christianity in Britain, and lots of other amazing things. So I highly recommend this website. There's all sorts of stuff on here: Eden, Atlantis, some cracking books by the looks of it. I've only just discovered it myself, but I thought I'd give it a mention because, as I say, the information on here is absolutely outstanding. Right, okay. One more thing to share before I bring on my guest. So we'll stop that, and then I'll bring on something else. That's the one. Okay, so now you should be able to see the website William Congreve and Co Publishers. Now, my guest today is the publisher and does this website. And her new book is called Finding the Phoenix. It's not actually out until, as you can see there, due out Easter 2025. But having read her previous book, The Great Migrations, I absolutely can't wait to read this. So I'm not sure if you can see the description. I'll read it out to you. So what is it that links Britain, specifically Cornwall, to the Phoenicians? Is it merely tin trade routes in antiquity, or something far deeper and more profound? Find out, among many other things, what came between the flood and the first of the great migrations to Britain in 1527 BC. That, of course, is Princess Albine. Why Poseidon's other name is Wanax, which is the same as Ones, I may have pronounced that wrong, the Sumerian fishman and original phoenix. Why phoenix is the botanical name for the date palm, which was sacred because it had both sexes on one tree. Why the phoenix is associated with Christ and the birth of Christianity in Britain in the 1st century AD. And why Phoenix is once more making his nest in the British Isles, ready for the second coming. So discover more connections between the British, whose name means earth in Welsh and covenant in Hebrew. I didn't know that. That's really, really interesting. I don't know if you can pre-order this yet, but it's due out in Easter of 2025. So I can't wait to read that book. It should be an absolute stunner. Okay, that's enough waffling by me. I will now bring on this evening's guest, I should say, the author of The Great Migrations and many other books. Do check out her website, William Congreve. Marchell Abrahams is here.
Hello.
Hello, Marchell. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. Okay. So,
Nice
I don't know if you've seen any of my previous shows, but most of them so far have been dedicated to early Christianity in Britain. It's a subject that I've recently discovered, I suppose, really. And I'm just overwhelmed at the moment with the amount of evidence for it. It's incredible. It's everywhere. You know,
It is. Yes.
The Romans wrote about it. Our own historians wrote about it. And yet the average person on the street knows probably nothing about it whatsoever, which is absolutely criminal, of course.
There's a very interesting reason behind that.
Okay.
At several councils in the Middle Ages, the antiquity of the British Church was asserted. And it wasn't the Roman Catholic Church who had a problem with that, because it's all in their records as well. It was the European bishops who had a problem with the antiquity of our church. So they were the ones who squashed the notion that our church was the first.
And why did they do that, Marchell?
Oh, heaven knows. Jealousy? I really don't know.
Okay, because I know that I'm trying to think of the guy's name. The monk beginning with an A came over here in the late 5th century, I think, or late 6th century. And that's who's credited with giving country Christianity. Bless you.
Augustine.
That's the one. Thank you.
Augustine, the Welsh monk, yes, Austin, who refused to stand when he met the British bishops at Aust, near Bristol. Right. And they were so outraged by his bad manners that was the end of the negotiations.
Wow, didn't know that.
They refused to speak to him after that, and you can't blame them.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up a genealogy from R.W. Morgan, the Victorian historian, in a few moments. But before I do, I've had a fascination with the historical Jesus character for many, many years. I read a book called Jesus Lived in India when I was a teenager. I forget the author's name now.
Yes.
Oh dear. But that kind of set me off on the journey. And viewers to this channel will know that I've done many previous videos with authors like Ralph Ellis on the historical Jesus. Yeah. It's a subject that fascinates me. And a vast amount of effort has gone into understanding Jesus and the Jesus era of the 1st century AD. So what do you suppose is the fascination with this individual and this period?
Well, when you sent me your list of questions. As we said before the program started, I had to catch my thoughts and write them down before they vanished. So I have got an answer. It's going to sound a bit scripted. That's because it is scripted. Jesus, in my view, and this ties in with another book I'm going to bring out, heaven knows when, called God's Body. It's the correlation between the cosmic body of God and how we are made in his image, male and female, created he them. So if we are made in the image of God, there must therefore be a correlation between our bodily organs, our appearance, and the cosmic body of God. And in that cosmic body is a process called the chrism, which I call the chrism. And this is because in the Anglican and the Roman Catholic Church, chrism is, especially the Episcopal Church, there's a function called the extreme unction when somebody's dying. And it's a mixture of oil and water, and the priest carries it when he goes to administer extreme unction, and it's called the chrism. And there's a very, very good reason behind this, and that is because what I call the chrism is the flow of oils in the body. And I could go into the process of it, but I can tell you somebody who does it a great deal better than I do, and that's Kelly Marie Carr, who explains this Christing process far better than I could. But I got interested in that process because it's all to do with the old religion. Mm-hmm. Druidic religion before Christ. So one of the first things that Christ says is that I am the way, the truth, and the life. Mm-hmm. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. So he speaks of himself as a channel. And we have this marvelous channel in our bodies, which is the spinal cord. Now, you and a lot of people will know that it's up the spinal cord that the Kundalini travels. Mm-hmm. To produce the lotus flower, and which is a symbol for enlightenment. Well, there's another process which I call the chrism, which is the release of oils from a funny little sort of rectangular piece of the brain called the claustrum. So little is known about this. I sound as though I'm waffling, but I'm not.
No. This is very interesting. There's some analogy here. You mentioned the Clausium. There's something going on with this and Santa Claus, isn't there?
There is. I'll leave that aside for a moment, if you don't mind. It's called the claustrum, yep. Claustrum, and it's the same word as cloister. So if you think of monkish cells like that, oils are released from this. So little is known about this process medically that I've got a copy of Gray's Anatomy. It can't even tell me whether there's one claustrum on this side and another on the other side, whether there's just one. There's probably two, because the body tends to put things that there are one of in the middle. But anyway, oil is released, and oils, as you know, feature in the Bible heavily. We only have to think of the 7 foolish virgins who let the oils run out of their lamps, so they had no light. It's all to do with enlightenment. Very, very briefly, this process is divided into 2 oils. One picks up an electrical charge from the pineal gland. The other picks up a magnetic charge from the pituitary gland. They join back together in a twist, and they go down the spine. Now, I haven't, I'm not saying this terribly well. I can give you Kelly Marie Carr's name so that you can give that to your viewers, because she's far better at this than I am. But it goes down at the spine, and it comes back up, and it's all to do with the crossing of the spinal column at the base of the neck. And she's brilliant about this. And this is why we see crosses at that angle sometimes in history, because that's the angle that this oil crosses the spine in the vagus nerve. And my research is because what happens after that is it spends 3 days at the back of the brain. Christ descended into hell for 3 days, and then it comes back up and it lights up the pineal gland, and you're supposed to be able to see more.
Wow.
And this happens once a month. And the whole thing about Christ is about enlightenment, the oils of wisdom and all that sort of thing. And he, as far as I can establish, and again, I'm really striking out on my own here, you won't find mainstream support for this, but as far as I can establish, Christ is the embodiment of that spiritual process, the flow of oils. It's in the books of the Bible, and you need Sam Shamoun for this, because I'm hopeless. I can't remember where anything comes from. But the Bible can be read on many levels.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, and one of the levels is a very basic one to get people accustomed to what's going on, the idea of Christianity, that sort of thing. But once you get deeper in it, you realize that this flow is a bodily principle, which does happen in some people and should happen in all humanity. It's a refining process. It's the Christing of man, if you like.
Christ consciousness, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And once you've got this flow going, this flow of oils going, that really is the basis of the second coming. And this is good. This is as far as I can establish, this is at the basis of this enormous step forward, evolutionary step forward that humanity is just about to take. That's why everything is so awful at the moment. Can I swear on your channel? All the crap
I do all the time.
To the surface. It's been brought out of the body of Earth where it was stuck. Christ was the first channel. He made a channel of his own body as a siphon to start taking the matter out of Earth. And where we are now is all that's been brought out, and it's going to be, gosh, what do I sound like? I better grow a beard, I think, and go and write the Old Testament. But he is the embodiment of that process. And this is why we instinctively cling to the story of him, because he was not only God and man, but he is also this process which we know in our hearts and our bones to be a true one.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone off waffling again, haven't I?
It's wonderful waffle. I was not expecting that answer at all, but it's
yes, look, because it's all, not only Kelly Marie Carr, she's Kelly Marie Carr, Kerr, but there's this as well, and this is an absolutely remarkable book, and I urge anybody who's interested in the Christing process, the refining of man, to go and lay hands on this if they possibly can.
God, man, the word made
flesh.
The word
George Carey and Inez Perry. It's been around for 100 years. It's rather Roman Catholic in some ways, but its grasp of the correlation between this Christing process and the instances of it in the Bible is absolutely remarkable. It explains it far better than I can. I mean, that was a really pedestrian exposition I've given. Go and read this book. It's absolutely first class.
I will do. I've got so many books to read at the moment.
That is Christ. That to my mind, I've written something else down here. Christ called himself the Son of Man. And if you consider that man in Sanskrit is manas and in Welsh is menu, and it means mind or individual, it's completely asexual. This is why it drives me potty when women will think that they need to be included by men and women. We're all minds. First and foremost, the sex of the body concerned is secondary. You know, when we're talking like this, or in a meeting or something, it couldn't matter if we come from Mars. Quite frankly, if we have a mind, that's where the word man comes from. Which is why we have chessmen because they're individuals, they're pieces. And he's also, therefore, if he's the son, S-O-N, of man, that means he's the son, or S-U-N, because homonyms matter, he's the son of mind. And this whole thing about mind being enlightened, I mean, yes, we have a brain in the gut, but it's not the gut that gets enlightened. It's up here where the process happens. And this is all going to go into God's body. But yes, he existed. And it's because he has this connection with this amazing process that people are going to have to come to terms with, whether they like it or not, in their own bodies. That's why he's also connected with earth, his essence of earth. But this is again going to go into God's body. This is because it's a real thing. He was a real man. He is God. He exists, and he is. That is why he has such a hold over our hearts and minds, because I think in our bones we know him to be true. I can't do better than that, I think.
No. So, first of all, when is God's body out?
I have no idea.
Oh, no. I have to read it now.
I've absolutely no idea. Let's hope next year. But, as soon as I can let you know, it'll all go up on the website. I promise. We're in a bit of a fallow period at the moment. So many exciting things are happening in the world. So much new, fresh energy blowing through. We've got a lot to do, and I'll let you know. At the moment, I have no idea.
I agree with you on that, although it's sometimes hard to feel it when you're under the Labour government in the UK.
Oh, don't. I mean, they've never been a Labour voter, but are they not a disgrace to the hard-working man? Are they not an absolute shower?
Okay, let's not get lost in that.
No, let's not.
We're here all night.
Let's not.
Okay. Manu, you mentioned the name Manu. Now, Manu has a lot of significance to me because, as I've mentioned before to you, I've had Ralph Ellis on the show, read his books, and he identified the historical Jesus as being King Isas Manu of Edessa, which I find very interesting, hearing you say what you just said. So that's interesting. Now,
gosh, really, I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
Yes. So you see, now my original plan was when I came across all this history of early Christianity in Britain, I just come out of researching Ralph's work, and he places the historical Jesus as being born in Edessa, but that character is conflated with Jesus of Gamala in the works of Josephus, and another guy who was mentioned by Josephus. I'm going to share screen for one moment. I wasn't actually planning on doing this, but as you bring this up, I've got to show you this. So one of the characters that Ralph conflates with the historical Jesus is Monobaz II, or Monobazus. Monobazus means the only king. And I'm going to read you from a quote here from the Talmud. So the Talmud relates that Monobazus, quote, dissipated all his own hoards and the hoards of his fathers in years of scarcity. His brothers and his father's household came into a delegation to him and said, "Your father saved money and added to the treasures of his fathers, and you are squandering them." He replied, "My father stored up below, and I am storing up above. My father stored in a place which can be tampered with, but I have stored in a place which cannot be tampered with.
Oh my goodness.
My fathers gathered treasures of money, and I have gathered treasures of souls."
Crippin, that could be the words of Jesus himself, couldn't it?
I do believe so, Marchell. It's on Wikipedia. You can read this on Wikipedia.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to make a note of that straight right this minute. That's fab. Ooh, my.
So Monobazus II was the son of Queen Helena of Adiabeni and King Monobazus I. Now, Adiabeni, to this day, the location of Adiabeni is hotly contested.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows where it is, but Ralph Ellis has said that Adiabene is Edessa. Now, Queen Helena of Adiabene was also married to King Agbarus of Edessa. So I think now Monobazis II, who I've just quoted from, is mentioned in the works of Josephus Flavius as being one of the two leaders of the Jewish revolt of AD 70. So going back to what I was saying, of trying to get the research of people like Alan Wilson and others before him with regards to the early Christianity in Britain and the royal family in Britain, my original plan was to try and match this up with Ralph's work. The main stumbling block is what Ralph describes as the chronological chasm, because he places Jesus 30 to 40 years ahead into the future. The Romans obviously hated Jesus, or the historical Jesus character, so they told Josephus Flavius, who was pretty much working for the Romans at the time, to delete these people from history. Rather than doing that, have I lost you? Are you still there, Marchell? Oh, hold on a minute.
Sorry.
Lost you there.
I'm back with you now.
Yeah, so where was I? Monobazis. So he's, rather than delete these characters, he's renamed them. He's given them even different names, or he's put them in different locations. There is an awful lot of evidence to back this up that I can't possibly tell you about now in one video, but I do highly recommend Ralph's books, because I'm hoping that somebody in our field will look into the four-part trilogy, as Ralph describes it, of his work on the historical Jesus character, because that's the problem I've got now, because I can see huge merits in both Ralph's work and what we're discussing today. Christianity in Britain. It's just trying to match them up together. That was my initial plan anyway. So anyway, we got a bit derailed.
We've slightly got derailed, but that's perfectly all right. Now, I was going to say something, but that's gone straight out of my head. Yes, I think I say somewhere in the Great Migrations that we are still in the foothills of re-establishing who we are, who we were, what our history is. There's going to be a lot of mistakes made. I've made many mistakes. Wilson and Black make mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes. That doesn't really matter. What matters is the general thrust of what we're all working on. Absolutely. And maybe in 25 years' time, there will be people coming along to say, oh, look, well, that was wrong, but, all that was right. And this is how it works. So we needn't worry about too many mistakes at this time. It's such an ancient subject, our British history, and so vast, and it encompasses so much. If you think of the colonization of Greece, if you think of all that, a great deal to be reconnected and corrected by future generations. They'll thank us one day, I hope.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Okay, let's go to. Hold on a minute. I need to share screen there. Bear with me 1 second.
Yes.
I'm going to bring up the genealogy onto the screen.
Yes.
There we are. Hopefully now viewers can see this on screen. I'm aware that it's the print is quite small here, so yes. I'll bring up some of these names. So could you, just in headline terms, who have we got doing what, when, and where? So that's characters, exploits, anchor dates, and locations. If you can, Marchell.
That's quite a big ask.
Sorry.
It's who have we got?
We start with Belly the Great at the very top, and he's been dated at BC 100.
Well, yes, but he hasn't even got the same name in Percy Enderby's book, Cambria Triumphans. and I know nothing about Bele Mawr. I'm afraid I leave that to Hugh Evans and Adam Griffith and Peter Chesborough. They know much more about him than I do. His reign. He was the father of King Lud, so we're looking at about 70-ish BC. He's given in Cambria Triumphans as Healy, Hely, and apparently he only reigned for a year. But in the Brut of England, he's given as Ely, Ely, and he reigned, they think, for 7 months. And that's all I can find about him. That's from the Loegrian side, but I expect Hugh, being a Welshman, will have more from the Cymric side.
Okay.
But anyway, he was Lud's father.
Yes.
And yes, about 70 BC. And it was Lud, of course, who rebuilt the walls around London, which were built, in my estimation, after the fall of Troy on the Gog-Magog hills. Yeah. And New London was rebuilt on the east side of the Walbrook in about 1130 BC. So there was a lot of walls to rebuild, and they'd have been mended over the centuries. But that's where we are, Lud. And as I said earlier, I tend to go on the Wilson and Blackett genealogy, because we're getting up to Caradoc, aren't we? This is the thing. Sorry?
I was going to say Caractacus is Caradoc, isn't it? I'm right in saying.
Yes, it's the same. Yes. Yeah. And oh my goodness me, does he turn up? I nearly fell off the sofa last night. I'm reading Northanger Abbey at the moment, and Jane Austen mentions Caractacus in a very positive light.
Wow.
So that's really something. But the point about Lud is that he is Caradoc's, supposed to be Caradoc's great-grandfather. Would that be about right? But
it looks that way, yes.
Morgan says that Caradoc's father was called Bran, the Blessed, but the genealogies used by Wilson and Blackett and reproduced in the Blessed Holy Kingdom, which is my Bible with a small b, Caradoc's father was Arch. Right, okay. And I'm not au fait enough with the genealogies to be able to say, how the discrepancy has crept in. If indeed it is a discrepancy, I don't know.
Well, we've got underneath Beli the Great, we've got Lud, and to the other side, we've got a character called Cassivelanus.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Again, that Morgan, for some reason, being a Welshman, he ought to be using the Cymric pronunciation, but that's the Loegrian one. It's not, and he calls Cynfelyn Cymbeline, which is very interesting because that's the name of Shakespeare's play.
Yes, and that's the king. Cymbeline is the king that Edmund Marriage identifies as the historical Jesus.
Yes, you said, and in Welsh his name is Cynfelyn, which means yellow hair.
Okay, well, didn't know that.
And if that's a description of Jesus, well, it would seem to vindicate the Victorians, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. Although Ralph is very confident when he states that Jesus was or had red hair. To this day, if you go to parts of the Middle East, Muslims will refer to Jesus as Isa, and some will even say that he had red hair. So there is something going on with this red hair dynasty. I suppose
definitely something going on with the red hair. Yes,
yellow and red hair maybe could be, could be the same kind of thing. Who knows?
Well, look at the Urumqi mummies who have red hair. Look at the Paracas skulls which have red hair.
Yes, and you've also got
mummies which have red hair.
Egyptian pharaohs. I was going to say Ramesses II definitely had red hair. We know that now. So there is something going on there. Above Cymbeline on this genealogy, Marchell, we've got, forgive my pronunciation, I'll do my best,
Tenvantius.
Thank
Yes.
you very much.
No. Where I come into my own is with Caradoc, his daughter, and the grandchildren. That's the ones I've been concentrating on. So
Right.
again,
Okay.
uh, the Holy Kingdom is the best book to read for in-depth information about this. But Tenvantius, Lod's, the best thing I can do is to tell you that at St. Stephen's, I think it's St. Stephen's. No, it's not St. Stephen's. It's the church off Fleet Street, St. Dunstan's.
Yeah.
The statue of Lud and his two sons, one of whom does not appear on this Morgan genealogy. They are actually, there's a statue of them that was on Ludgate itself, and they're now in the entrance to St. Dunstan's. And there's the Queen Elizabeth statue as well, which overlooks as you walk into St. Dunstan's. But according to that group of statuary, Lud had two sons, Tenvantius, and I can't remember the name of the other one. It can't have been Arviragus, can it?
Well, we've got Arviragus and Guiderus or Giderus underneath Cymbeline. So presumably they were the children of Cymbeline.
Yes, well, I can't remember when Tenvantius's brother. Oh, of course I can. Arvarwe, who was Aregweth's father, who was a traitor. He was known as Mandubricius, but his real name was Arvarwe.
Okay.
And his daughter was the Queen of the Brigantes, who actually betrayed Caradoc. She betrayed him. She was of her husband.
Right.
Two.
Yeah.
The first one was of noble birth. The second one was not. But she betrayed. Caradoc went after that famous battle. Can't remember the name. He went to ask for her help, and she, instead of helping him, she was the Brigantes were vassals of the Romans, rather like poor old Prasutagus. Prasutagus, who was Boadicea's husband. Sorry, I love the old names. Boudica's husband. I'll have to get used to the correct way of pronouncing that. And she betrayed him, and she was the reason why Christianity went to Rome in the first place, because Caradoc and his entire family were put in chains and taken off to Rome. But her father Arvarwe was the hope I've got this right. He was the so-called hostage who went willingly with Caesar, and Caesar made much of this, but he went willingly, and he grew up in Rome. And Aregweth, who the Romans called Cartimandua, she grew up in Rome as well. So she was very Roman orientated. And so why Morgan has left Arvarwe out of this, I do not know.
No, that is odd. Just another quick question for you on this. On the right-hand side of this genealogy, we've got, as we've mentioned, Tenuantius,
yes,
Cymbeline, followed by Giderus and Arviragus.
Yes.
I looked up these people online, and it would seem that academics or historians place these people or this family somewhere north of London in Hertfordshire, and yet I was under the impression that they were based in South Wales or Glamorgan. So what's your take on that, Marchell?
They're actually the Loegrian royal family. Do you know about the dual kingship? Shall I briefly explain the dual kingship?
No, I don't. Please do. Yeah.
Right. Okay. It took me ages to work this out, but and I offer this to the shades of Wilson, Blackett, and Broadstock because it was a revelation. The dual kingship is in times of peace. The High King was to come from the Loegrian royal family, who were based in the southeast. In times of war and emergency, the Cymric royal family took over, and they were based in the southeast of what is today Wales.
Right.
So why that is has astonishingly interesting roots in the apple of the eye and the covering. It's all to do with eyes, and that goes into God's body as well. I'm sure I'm not making any sense, but in Morgan's book, The British Cymry, I'm so sorry, I keep mispronouncing that vowel. He talks about how the other parts of Britain, Cymru and Alban, which is Scotland, are to pay tribute to Lloegrs, which is today England, only it was much smaller. Because Lloegrs is where the essence of kingship actually comes from. It's a bit like the gold being surrounded by the silver of the Cymry. Silver's a much tougher metal than gold, but gold is king because it doesn't corrupt, which silver does. No disrespect to the Cymry. Silver and gold ought to be treated on a par. You can't make energy unless you have got silver and gold. Electrum in the middle. You follow me? So yes, the Lloegrian royal family had to hand over, as it were, kingship to the Cymric royal family in Glamorgan in times of war. There must have been quite how this actually worked in practice. I'm not sure, because it can't have been much fun, let us say, for Cynvelyn suddenly to hand over to Caraddoc, but that's roughly what happened. I think actually Cynvelyn was before Caraddoc. Yes, 40, 80. No, they're about the same.
Yes, yeah.
So there must have been an absolute understanding between whoever happened to be king of the Lloegrian royal family and king of the Glamorgan royal family, to what sort of a state was the country in. And of course, after what's his face, Claudius came here in 45. 45, and suddenly there was a Roman presence here. Well, Britain was in a state of permanent warfare, so that the idea of Lloegrs as the overall ruling power sank out of sight, because the Cymric royal family, in time of war, took over ruling the entire island. And I date the sort of forgetting about Lloegrs really from that period, because how long were the Romans here for? On and off, 400 years or something, 300 years thereabouts. And by the time they left, 400 and something, we then had the Saxons and what's that fellow's name? Vertigan, who asked the Saxons here.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we had the comet when this country was absolutely devastated. So that the whole idea of the dual kingship faded out of knowledge altogether.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I've heard about this comet strike I think it was the 6th century that Wilson and Blackett have written about.
Yes.
But it's not very talked about. I mean, considering it happened pretty recently, given the great scheme of things, it happened 1,500 years or so ago.
Yes, I know.
Yet we don't know about this at all, and yet it sounded as though it was pretty devastating.
It was absolutely devastating. It tore a strip right down from the northeast of Scotland across the middle. I don't think it can't have hit us, but it did a Tunguska. It sort of did it was the trajectory of it that did the damage.
Yes.
And then, according to Victor Klube, who was a professor emeritus, again, I'm cribbing like mad from this. Victor Klube was an expert in this sort of thing, and he identified it as the comet that went on to devastate Bolivia and scatter the ruins of Pumapunku, which nobody seems to be able to explain. Pumapunku is a mess. It's all over the place. And it's because of this comet, which is the same one. Wow. Now, I've got this fabulous book. There we are. Again, from this amazing place in New Delhi, Gaian Books, can't recommend them enough. This is called The Observation of Comets.
Okay.
And there are 1 or 2 comets in this book which could fit the bill.
Wow.
but because they are based in Chinese astrology and that sort of thing. Well, Hugh Evans, if you're watching, please see if you can identify our comet from this book, because I'm pretty sure that it's in here, but I'm not a cosmetologist or a geologist. I wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah, okay.
But that's why we lost the idea of the dual kingship. And of course, after the comet, we had this 11 years wasteland.
Mhm.
And then we had all the Jutes and the Angles and a whole lot of other people who thought it would be nice to come and live here with no British in it.
Mm.
And that really was the end of our dual kingship.
Wow, absolutely fascinating. Okay, Marchell, I'm just going to put a couple of comments on the screen because we've had quite a few, and I'm aware of the time as well, because
Yes, so am I. Dear.
it's 2 of my pre-planned questions, and I've got another 10 or so. So
Oh, God. Let's do a part 2. Let's do a part 2.
Oh, that's a very sensible idea, I think.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, we'll do that. When are you available?
So next Sunday?
Are you really?
No, sure, if you like.
Fantastic. Yes. Okay, we'll do a second part of that. That's
Okay,
brilliant.
if we don't finish, we don't want to go on until 10 o'clock or anything
No,
like
of course
that.
not. Of course not. No.
We'll grind to a halt, and anything we haven't covered tonight, we'll do next Sunday.
Okay.
I'd
Okay.
be
I
happy
will
to.
ask you one more thing.
Right.
Then I promise you that next week we'll really get stuck into Claudia, Rufus Pudens, and
Yes.
and the siblings and children, etc.
Yeah.
I'll just read out a couple of comments while we're here. We've had one from Susie Logan, who
Oh,
says,
yes. Hello, Susie.
"Good evening, great to be here. Hope you're well, Marchell."
Yes, indeed. I hope you are too.
We've had one from New York City, Freddie Bling, who has said, "Mexico Pacific coast here. Nice, Mr. Paul. Thank you." Let's just scroll down a little bit. We've got David J with us, who has said, "I like this guest already." That's very wise. And he said, "Looks like a good one ahead." It certainly has been. I've really enjoyed this. I did wonder if we'd managed to cover all the information I had planned, and I'm so glad you've agreed to come on again, Marchell.
Well, I would love to. I mean, I could talk the subject into the ground.
Yes, and it's thoroughly absorbing. So, as I say, we won't discuss Claudia and her family this evening. We'll save that for next Sunday. But I do have to ask for your take on Joseph of Arimathea, or Joseph. Let's get this right. Joseph Arimathea. I think that's how Edmund Marriage refers to him as, because Arimathea, nobody knows where it is. Nobody's ever found it.
No.
But Arimathea means exalted of the gods. It was a title that was given to the people in Jesus's family, basically.
Yes.
But I must ask you for your take on. I mean, do you believe that he came to this country?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
This country was for centuries the only reliable source of first-class tin. And tin, without tin, you can't make bronze. I mean, we would have had. I mean, I know there are tin mines in Spain and there are tin mines elsewhere, but this is the major source of tin, and that was known to the Phoenicians. That's been known for 5,000 or 6,000 years, and the idea that this funny little island should not be known when we were the only source or the major source of tin is to me absurd. Of course, people knew about us, and is it the Covenant Press? Did I get this from the Covenant Press? I can't remember. It's not mainstream, but Joseph of, I'm going to carry on calling him Arimathea because I shall get into such a muddle if I try and change horses midstream. He was what's called the nobili decurious, which means basically he was mining. He was the fellow in charge of mining, basically, for the Roman Empire. Now, I don't know where I got that from. I hope one day I'll be able to remember. But that is what he's supposed to have been, and it would have been his responsibility to supply the Roman Empire with tin for and copper and lead and gold, because we've got it all here, and silver, for the Roman Empire. And if we accept that Christ was of the line of the British royal family, then what could be more likely than that he should have taken his nephew or great nephew, we're not sure of the relationship, to Britain with him.
Okay.
And we were in Cornwall a few years ago now, and we actually went to Priddy, which is an amazing little place near Wookey Hole. And they have a saying at Priddy, and if they're certain about something, the Priddy people, they say, as sure as our Lord was at Priddy.
Wow.
So
Cool.
something is as certain as that.
Yes.
So they're definite about it. And then, of course, you've got the tunic crosses in Cornwall. Which, do you know about the tunic crosses?
I don't think so. I'm thinking of the Nevern and the cross on the wall.
Oh yeah, no,
That's
that's
different,
slightly
yeah?
different. That's
Okay.
Christ's own cross. But the tunic crosses, instead of having what they will call the Celtic cross, the British cross with the circle and the equal arms, what they have is the equal armed cross, but with a beardless boy wearing a tunic carved on it. I can only think of two, but there are many more. There's one at Sancreed, and there's one which might or might not mean holy belief. And there's one in a private garden belonging to the family who make Rodder's clotted cream at Rosemoran, which isn't all that far from St Just, where we stayed. And Mrs. Rodder was extremely kind and let us into her garden to examine the tunic cross. But these tunic crosses are supposed to commemorate Jesus's visit to these islands as a boy. And while we're briefly on the subject, his lost years. Now, had he been anywhere which Roman Catholicism felt it could talk about during those 18 lost years, you can bet your bottom dollar they'd have said so. But those 18 lost years, I think, were spent here. And that was left out of the books of the Bible, a deafening silence. Like his marriage, he was a rabbi, they had to be married. And yet that marriage is left out as well. So wherever you get a deafening silence, you can be absolutely certain that there's something going on there that they don't want us to know. St. Paul, can I talk about St. Paul, or am I jumping the gun?
Oh, save it for next week.
Are you going to stop soon? Are we stopping
Well,
soon?
in a moment, because we're kind of moving in that direction now. And it's a big subject in itself. I know that St. Paul came over here in the AD 60s, I believe, in his missing I think there was 6 years in his history that can't be accounted for. And that was towards the end of his life in the AD 60s. But that's a massive story. So let's do that next week, Marchell.
Yeah, it's all in here.
What's that again, sorry?
It's the missing Acts of the Apostles.
Wow. Where did you get that from?
It's called the Sonini manuscript. And it was found in Turkey in about 1830 something.
Oh, okay.
And there are...
That's Edessa land, because Edessa is now in modern day Turkey.
Edessa, yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. Okay.
And
We
of course,
just sorry. We've had a comment from Susie Logan who said they shipped the tin from St Michael's Mount. Can you confirm that, or? No,
I can't confirm it at all. It's highly likely that they did so. St Michael's Mount, as you will know, is on the Michael and Mary line, which stretches all the way down from Skellig Michael in Ireland through St Michael's Mount to Mont Saint Michel, and all the way down through Delphi, which is astonishingly important to our story. It's in the Great Migrations, all the way down to, is it Hebron? Anyway, somewhere in the Holy Land. But what they haven't shown you is that the Michael and Mary line carries on down to Sumer, down to which is where Albine came from. All the way from Albine's city, to Ireland. Skellig Michael is the Michael and Mary line. So these places were supremely important ley lines, energy lines, Earth's energy lines.
Just one final point on Joseph of Arimathea. I was surprised to read. I was on the National CV of Britain, which
Oh,
is
yes.
a fantastic website.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
I was in the more articles section, and I was reading a document written by Alan Wilson on Joseph of Arimathea coming to Britain.
Yes.
And he said that both he and Baron Blackett both doubted that Joseph of Arimathea was a tin merchant, which surprised me. And unfortunately, there's no sources, or they didn't provide any information as to why they think that, which is a shame, because
it is a great shame.
Yeah, I found
and it's one of the very few places where I disagree with them, because you know, like
everyone does pretty much.
You cannot discount local tales. I mean, the medieval ones are ridiculous sometimes, but the further back a story goes, and of course the tunic crosses themselves are far, far older than medieval, the more likely it is to have that there is truth in the story, because unlike us nowadays, who are a combination of untrammeled imagination allied to rigid closed minds, present company accepted, of course, in those days that they didn't need to use their imagination the way we do, because they knew what was happening. They could sense it. They knew what the Earth's energy lines were up to. They knew who their ancestors were. They knew so much more than we do. And gosh, I wish we could. Yeah.
So do I. Marchell, this has been absolutely wonderful. We're approaching the hour mark, so I'm going to stop there. I'm so pleased you've agreed to come on with me next week and get stuck into Claudia and her siblings. And
yes, and St. Paul in Britain.
Yes,
because I've got a lot. I mean, we can carry on talking until we've exhausted the subject. And I'm very happy to come on whenever you want.
Thank you very much. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got another 15 to 20 questions brewing in my brain at the moment, so we better stop.
Jot them down and send them to me.
I will definitely. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this, everyone. I know I have. I'll be watching it back. So join us again next week at 7 o'clock on Sunday next week for another show. Please like, share and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Cheers, Marchell.
Thank you. Thank you for asking.